Last night, we got more Epstein document revelations and more than a few references to Trump in them, actually. And several of them are particularly repulsive. This is disgusting stuff, so just bear that in mind as we reveal some of this. So some of them show that a subpoena was sent to Mar-a-Lago back in 2021 for records that pertain to the government's case against Ghislaine Maxwell. Also, important historical note there that a lot of people who constantly throw out, why didn't the Democrats release all this 2 years ago? It's because they had the ongoing case. They couldn't just torpedo the ongoing case by revealing all the documents, but whatever, nobody's gonna acknowledge that. And so those documents included notes from an assistant US attorney in New York about the number of times that Trump actually flew on Epstein's plane, including one flight that included just Trump, Epstein, and a 20-year-old woman. So the 20-year-old woman is not, she's not 14, she's not 16, still interesting. One 20-year-old girl and that's it. And there's more flights, by the way, than Trump had previously admitted to. Although in his defense, he was hanging out with the guy so much for so many years, how could he be expected to remember all the trips they took together? So he apparently is listed as a passenger on at least 8 flights between 1993 and 1996, including at least 4 flights on which Maxwell was also present. He is listed as having traveled with, among others, and at various times, Marla Maples, his daughter Tiffany, and his son Eric. On one flight in 1993, he and Epstein are the only 2 listed passengers. On another, the only 3 passengers are Epstein, Trump, and then 20-year-old with the person's name redacted. On 2 other flights, 2 of the passengers respectively were women who would be possible witnesses in a Maxwell case. And so, again, none of this proves anything, but I just want you to put yourself in the place of like a MAGA person. If all this was true of Joe Biden, what would you be thinking about it? What would you be assuming about why all of this was going on, why they were on these flights, why they were with these young women or girls who could be witnesses to all of this? Just think about that. And there's also this. We need to turn to possibly one of the grossest parts, setting aside, look up, if you want to destroy your psyche, just look up Trump Epstein nipples and you can go to, I don't want to talk about it anymore. But this letter came out, and it's a very interesting letter from Epstein to Larry Nassar, another monster, or arguably one of the few men that are like on a similar level to Epstein in terms of the horrors that they have wrought on America and on young women. So the letter says, as you know by now, I have taken the short route home. We'll return to that. Good luck. We shared one thing, our love and caring for young ladies at the hope they'd reach their full potential. Remember, Larry Nassar raped so many gymnasts. So many, like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of times. This is what Epstein is bonding with him over, that they both love to rape people. And they call that helping them reach their full potential as they're traumatized, victimized. Our president shares our love of young, nubile girls. When a young beauty walked by, he loved to grab snatch, whereas we ended up snatching grub in the mess halls of the system. Basically saying Trump would sexually assault these random women and would go on, he'd be bragged about it with Billy Bush, whereas they both ended up in prison. That's what they're referencing there. Nasser, of course, pleaded guilty in 2017 to possession of child pornography and sexually assaulting young women and girls under the guise of being a doctor for the US women's national gymnastics team. So what's interesting about this letter is he wrote it right before he died. Now, it's interesting because if you believe it to be authentic, he's referencing a short route home right before he, according to the cover, the story, killed himself. And so if you believe this to be authentic, then it's, that would be evidence towards that. If you don't believe it's authentic, then that adds an interesting extra note to, so if you're gonna have this letter where he previews that he's gonna kill himself, he's also implicating Donald Trump in it, then that might point to who would be doing the cover up in that case. Again, this all gets super complicated, but Sharon, it's gross, and I believe handwriting analysts believe it to be authentic. I think that's, what this had previously been reported, by the way, the existence of the letter, if not the content, about 3 or 4 years ago. So anyway, what do you make of that?
What more do we need to know? I mean, if this is authentic and this guy was about to off himself talking about Epstein, and he thought, well, why don't I make sure I say goodbye to one of my friends who's also a monster? Like, no redemption, if you believe, he's talking about a short trip home to hell. I don't know what he believes in, but it's just sick, disgusting. When I first saw this reported again, I was like, who's Larry Nassar? And I was like, oh yeah, that guy. And some of the most famous gymnasts in the world popped into my head. And I thought, this is the company you're keeping. You're right. You've been saying it over and over again that we don't know, we can't, no one's saying for sure, Trump, this and that. But after a certain point, if this is your circle and there's some obsessive people in it, like Nasser's an obsessed sicko, what else could you talk about? The stock market? I mean, was he great at investing or something? Like all these people keep hanging together and it's pretty gross.
Yeah, they all do, and you should have so much more scorn for all of them than you do.
Yep.
The idea that some people believe that Donald Trump stopped talking to him. Honestly, the cover story isn't even because of what Jeffrey Epstein was doing. It was that he was taking women from Trump. That is not what caused the problem with them. That's what they bonded over. Their worst aspects were what they loved about each other the most. And evidently with Epstein, he had other people that they shared that interest. And it reflects so poorly on them and on all of the people around them who now try to cover it up and defend them, the Carolyn Leavitts and the Pam Bondis and the Bonginos and the Kash Patels and all of them. Helping again, after grifting for years about taking down elite sex predators, they're all working to protect the network of elite sex predators. They are the conspiracy they supposedly sought to uncover. And Steve Bannon, after all this, after all of it, working to try to rehabilitate Jeffrey Epstein's relationship, or his public image, I guess, the relationship he has with him anyway, it's all gross. And I'm gonna end with this. So a lot of the stuff that came out is like tips that were sent in. There's one tip that's going around a lot of a person talking about a conversation that was overheard by Donald Trump's limo driver back in the early 90s, where supposedly it is revealed that Donald Trump had raped a young girl. Now bear in mind, that is not from the limo driver, it's a tip in regards to it. But there's a lot of stuff that theoretically isn't verified as being true. And that's the fact that some of that stuff is in there, as well as a lot that is verified, is going to allow the DOJ to try to defend Donald Trump, but doing so in a way that reminds us all of how lacking in independence the DOJ has these days. They put out this tweet saying, blah, 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 DOJ released a bunch of documents. Some of these documents contain untrue and sensationalist claims made against President Trump that were submitted to the FBI right before the 2020 election. To be clear, the claims are unfounded and false. And if they had a shred of credibility, they certainly would have been weaponized against President Trump already. And then blah, 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 we want transparency, which obviously they don't, they've redacted everything. That is insane. If you want to put out a clarifying statement saying there are files in this tranche of documents that aren't verified, you can do that. But there's a lot of people who claims are made against, for them to come out and say the ones about Trump aren't true. Also, if they're unverified, you don't know that they're false. That is ridiculous of you to claim that they haven't been verified or not. It would be untrue to say that they're true, to pretend that we know that the claims made are true, but it is equally ridiculous for you to just come out and act as Donald Trump's personal lawyers and say that they're false. This is not how the DOJ is supposed to act and wouldn't have acted under any president other than Donald Trump. To come out and do damage control for the president. Again, transparency is the farthest thing from their goal. Any final comments, Sharon?
No, it's just like, it's so predictable. Can you wait until we ask before you lie? Why are you putting out this stupid preamble? It's just like so obvious, which, maybe for some of their supporters, whoever's still left there, they don't care about how obvious this looks. But there's no disclaimer that they can give to wipe out Donald Trump's record with women, perhaps with children, perhaps, we don't know. But there's nothing that they can say right now. Give us the documents, we'll do our own analysis.